Coming up on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast, when sarcoidosis goes from bad to worse.
And it's a lot. It's been a progressive disease for me, but I developed the antibodies to the Remicade and I had to stop it. And then I went on Humira and I was off and on that for, I don't know, a year and a half maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I had stomach issues. And then towards the end, I got these horrible lesions in my mouth.
Janet Mockovciak just can't seem to catch a break.
Ironically, after I started getting the Xeljanz, I did really well on it for about 6 weeks, and then I got pneumonia. And I was so sick. And I basically had been was sick off and on from the beginning of June all the way into early December.
We'll hear from Janet coming up next.
This is the Sarc Fighter podcast, living with sarcoidosis and other rare diseases. Here's your host, John Carlin.
Hi guys, this is episode 156 of the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I am your host, John Carlin. The date of this recording is January 26th, 2026. Today's guest is Janet Mockovciak, and Janet's making a return appearance on the show. She's a great supporter of our cause, as you will hear, but I'll tell you right now, she's a volunteer, and she has helped in so many, many ways. But her sarcoidosis just will not stay at bay. She's tried just about every drug therapy known to medical science. In fact, while we were talking, she was receiving an IV infusion. And the hoops she had to jump through to even be able to get to that is an amazing story. Her ability to keep going, her determination to live her life the way she wants to live it, despite all the hardship, is an absolute inspiration. And I can't wait for you to hear from Janet. This is a return appearance. She's been on the show once before. It was several years ago. And I can just tell you that her situation has gone from bad to worse. But the way she's dealing with it, hopefully, will give everybody a sense of hope, I guess, is the best way for me to describe it. Because, you know, hers is not a story like mine where they found a therapy that's got everything at bay. At least it has for several years now. Things just keep on going wrong for Janet, and yet she has a great attitude. She's out, she's skiing, but overcoming 100 things in order just to be able to do what she used to do as just a matter of her daily life. So anyway, I think that you are going to find inspiration through the hardship that Janet has overcome. Now, before we get to the interview today, I just want to give you an update. If you've listened to the last few episodes going back to November of 2025, basically the fourth quarter of last year, you've heard me talk about rupturing my Achilles tendon playing pickleball. And so, therefore, I had the surgery, and then I was in a cast until just about Christmas. Now I'm recovering in one of these walking boots, which holds your foot in place pretty much like a cast. I guess the only upside is you can take it off and get in the shower, right? Otherwise, it might as well be a cast. But then just a couple of weeks ago, the doctor cleared me to walk in the boot without crutches. And so I've been doing okay. I've been driving. I've been working as normal. I go in and I help a local nonprofit with their fundraising, and then I go to the TV news station and I anchor the evening newscasts and get in my car and I come home. Well, then, and this probably impacted you too, we got this huge snowstorm over the weekend. It was basically a Saturday-Sunday event for us, January 24th and 25th. And I think the Weather Channel named it Fern. They tried to name their winter storms just like they do the hurricanes. So I think the Weather Channel was calling this Storm Fern, and they, so it begins with F, and the next one will begin with G, et cetera, et cetera. But this was a massive storm. It hit the whole country east of New Mexico. We watched it. We saw it coming. We saw the moisture. And for us here in the mountains of Virginia, we're oftentimes in a scenario where when everybody else is getting snow, we wind up with snow turning to sleet, turning to freezing rain, that kind of stuff, because the air mixes aloft. And even though it was, I think it was 19 degrees yesterday at ground level, the air aloft was much warmer. So what started out as a snowflake then melted and then refroze as it was approaching the ground, and you get these sleet pellets. They just sort of bounce off the deck. If you hold your arm out on your coat, they bounce off your coat. But that's still much better than the freezing rain, where it hits the ground as rain and then freezes immediately, and that's what creates those terrible slick icy conditions, and it coats the trees and the power lines, and there's power outages and all of that. And fortunately, like people west of us, Tennessee, in that area, they got the freezing rain. They had the massive power outages. We didn't have that, so thank God for that. But I will just tell you that when we have bad weather, that is all hands on deck at the TV station. And that's exactly what we were looking at. So we had a lot of people sleeping on air mattresses in the conference rooms and so forth at the TV station because people couldn't get home, or if they could get home, they wouldn't be able to get back into work. And we do news early morning, we do it late at night. And so my job was to do the 6 and the 11 o'clock news. And I have an SUV, it's a Hyundai Palisade. And I love it, and it's got a specific setting for snow, and I never had to use it before this storm, but it really worked. And then I was still spinning, just trying to get out of my parking space, and there's a button you can hit that puts the car in basically full-time four-wheel drive. It locks the differential for car people, and I hit that button, and the car backed right up. So that was good. But even then, I was struggling to get traction. I've just got all-weather tires on it. And I did make it to and from work okay. It was not great, but it was okay. And then I got to work, and the way it works is there's a gate around, there's a fence around the TV station. And so you have to pull up, you get out your ID card, you beep yourself in, the gate opens, you drive through the gate, and you go park, and the gate closes behind you, right? Pretty simple. Well, there's a little bit of an incline up to the gate, and the snow was deep enough, and our plow guy couldn't come for various reasons. So you pull up to the gate, you beep, the gate opens, and then you can't go, right? I was able to kind of back up a little bit and make it through before the gate closed on my car. But people who were driving regular cars or smaller SUVs, they were getting stuck right there at the TV station. So I went out with a couple other employees, and we just started shoveling. And we needed to get the snow down low enough that it wasn't going to rub on the bottom of people's cars, and then essentially create two tire tracks, if you will, where people could get their tires down to the pavement, get over the snow, get through the gate, and then get into the parking lot where they could come to work. And then, presumably the plow will have come. But as of last night when I left at 11 o'clock, the plow had not. And everybody was pushing cars and that kind of thing. But, of course, I'm still in this boot. So I'm out there. The kids who are working with me are 10 years younger than my children, and I'm feeling good about this because, I'm the old guy, and I'm the one who's doing the shoveling, and I'm overcoming this disability with my ruptured Achilles, and I'm helping to shovel the snow, and I haven't been able to do anything physical for months and months, and I was having the time of my life. I woke up this morning and my back's a little sore, but nothing serious. But it just felt good to be doing something and to really be helping, because this was just a thing where everybody was pitching in, And, our main meteorologist stayed at the station straight for 3 days. And the morning crew had people sleeping. And some of these folks are not used to dealing with bad weather or with adverse circumstances. I grew up in the country, and I just I know how to live with this stuff and deal with this stuff. I grew up on a farm, and we had a John Deere tractor, and we plowed snow with it. And I mean, this was all pretty routine for me, even if it was a pain in the butt. But then to be out there in the walking boot and and shoveling snow, for some odd reason, I just got a kick out of it. All right. So that's kind of a personal update. I hope that story was interesting. But again, getting back to the boot, it's an injury. But with an injury like this, that there is a progression toward healing. It's taking forever. I was so happy, just like I said, to be able to go out and just shovel snow. But I do know that eventually this will heal and my leg will be back to normal. But with sarcoidosis, healing is relative. And being healed is a condition that many people are constantly chasing. And that is the case for Janet Mockovciak, and my conversation with Janet coming up next here on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the Sarc Fighter podcast. You may be wondering, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the sarcoidosis solution? It's simple. Make a donation to KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis. 100% of the money goes to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Look for a link in the show notes of the Sarc Fighter podcast. Welcome back to the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. Joining me now and once again is Janet Mockovciak, who is fighting the good fight with sarcoidosis and is helping FSR in any number of ways. Her husband, John, is on the board of directors with me. But Janet, we'll get into all that. Welcome back to the Sarc Fighter podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So the last time you were on the air was in 2021, right?
Yeah, May of 21.
Okay, so almost 5 years ago as we're speaking now. And unlike many cases, yours has not gotten better. So for people who maybe haven't been listening that long, can you kind of bring us up to date on where you remember that you were in May of 2021, and then we'll sort of backfill to where you are now? Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah, I was diagnosed in 2018 with pulmonary and lymph nodes sarcoidosis. And when I switched my care from where I was living previously to full-time to my care to National Jewish Health in Denver, they discovered that I also had cardiac sarcoidosis. And then shortly after that, they discovered that I had small fiber neuropathy. And I think in 2021, that's kind of where I was: lungs, lymph nodes, cardiac, and small fiber neuropathy, which is more than enough, plenty, right?
Yeah, that's your standard Sarc patient right there,
Yeah.
your basic Sarc patient, if you will, not to make light of it, but
Yeah. And I was doing Remicade infusions, and I'd been through all of the, things in the course running up to that, with the azathioprine, the methotrexate, and then went on to Remicade, which really helped. I mean, I think that's what really knocked back my cardiac sarcoidosis. And then I'll get into this more, but as we progress forward, I have been through. I had to stop taking Remicade because it stopped working. it just wasn't doing anything for me anymore. And that was in 2023, I think.
Okay. Okay.
And I wrote all this down, John, because it's so hard for me with
Well,
brain fog and everything
no
to
kidding. No
remember.
kidding.
And it's a lot. It's been a progressive disease for me. But I developed the antibodies to the Remicade and I had to stop it. And then I went on Humira and I was off and on that for, I don't know, a year and a half maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I had stomach issues. And then towards the end, I got these horrible lesions in my mouth where like I couldn't eat. It's like, it was like people with cancer. They get those horrible mouth sores.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having to do these mouth washes to get rid of the sores. And anyway, so we stopped the Humira and the mouth sores went away. And so, and at the same time, I developed skin sarcoidosis. And Humira is one of the drugs of choice to treat skin sarcoidosis. And so it was really becoming pretty obvious that the TNF inhibitors, that Remicade and Humira and Flectra, they're all TNF inhibitors, and that my body was not responding to them anymore. And so we needed to go look at a different class of drug. And
Yeah.
in
Go
the
ahead.
meantime, I had COVID twice, and each time I had COVID, it sent all of my sarcoidosis symptoms into a much worsened state. I also have adrenal insufficiency from steroid
Prednisone.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steroids. Yep.
And that's a lifelong thing. And so whenever I get sick, I have to I have to take what's called stress dose steroids. So if I have to have a surgery, anything medical, illness, I have to take all these stress dose steroids to allow my body to fight whatever's going on. And so in February of 23, I started IVIG infusions, primarily for the small fiber neuropathy, but also to really help my brain fog and I had lost executive functioning, which, I was a vice president in a bank. I've, created and run nonprofits. And, I've always sort of prided myself on my ability to get stuff done and make things happen. And I was like almost in a state of paralysis where I just wasn't able to function the way I wanted to function. And the IVIG has been amazing. But I started out doing that at National Jewish. And then I had to travel to infusion centers in either Texas or Colorado because it was 20, the nursing shortage was still prevalent
Hmm.
then after COVID. So many nurses quit and they shut down infusions, the only infusion center outside of a hospital in New Mexico. And everyone was too short staffed to send nurses up here to me. And so I spent a lot of energy trying to figure out a solution. And finally, I was at an infusion center in Colorado, and I would be gone a week, a month to get these infusions. And that was not like the whole idea of doing these is to improve your lifestyle, like help you be
Right.
able to live your life, and taking
Yeah.
a week out of your month away from home because it's a 4-day infusion and I would have 1 day of travel on each side. So I was gone six days a month. So anyway, I was at this infusion center in Colorado in Denver, and one of the nurses, they brought in the chief nurse for this region to talk to me to see if they could help me figure out a way to just make this easier. And she just looked at me and said, "Have you talked to your doctors about infusing at home?" I was like, "Well, how would I do that? I can't get a nurse." And they said, "No, you would do your own infusion." And so I convinced my healthcare team that I could do it. And I got trained how to do it. I had a port put in. And since August of 2023, I've been self-infusing at home.
Should we mention you are infusing even as we speak?
I am.
I mean, so how long does that take? I don't want to interrupt your train of thought because you're kind of on a roll, but the fact that you're infusing and being a guest on a podcast at the same time says a lot about how hard you're trying to make all this work.
Well, I look at these infusion days as days to get stuff done at home because I can't leave the house. So, talking to you, I felt like was something I could do while I'm hooked up to my IV.
Okay. God love you. All right. So here you are infusing at home, and you've convinced your healthcare team that the IVIG is the way to go. And you live in Taos, New Mexico?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how, and it's day, you have to fly to Denver from there.
It's a 4.5 hour drive.
Okay.
Or the little town where I live now has an airline that flies 5 days a week into Denver. So that has been a game changer for
Oh,
me. I have to go up to National Jewish at least every 90 days. And sometimes if I'm really sick, I'm up there more often.
okay.
And being able, it's hard for me to do the drive by myself these days. So it would mean my husband and I would both have to go. And now with this little airline right here, 10 minutes from my house, wheels up to wheels down, 47 minutes. I can go by myself. And then when I'm with my doctors, I just put my husband on FaceTime and he participates, but he doesn't have to sit there while I'm having all my testing done and my imaging and all of that,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
operate like your experience at the Cleveland Clinic where, you do all your testing one day and 2 days, and then you see your doctors after that.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's
I
the
know the
same.
drill. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's that's been wonderful. But yeah, so yeah, so I mentioned that I was diagnosed with skin sarcoidosis,
Yes.
and I have a lesion under my nose, which I'm not going to lean in close enough for you to see. I have it covered up with makeup.
Well, it's
Um,
working. I can't tell.
and and then I also later they discovered that I had sarcoidosis on the inside of my mouth, like
Oh,
on the inside of my lip.
oh,
And that one's not painful. The one under my nose is like a lesion that grows and goes up inside my nostril, and yeah, it's not pretty. And then just oh gosh, when I was in December, I developed a lesion under my tongue, and I guess there's a salivary gland there, and they said I would happen to be at National Jewish when I had it, and they said it looked like sarcoidosis on that salivary gland. And but that's gotten better. So um, that one was painful because you're it's hard to eat. Um, but so my local dermatologist in Taos had put me on Plaquenil and some topical ointments for this thing under my nose. At that point, we didn't know about inside my mouth, and my doctors at National Jewish didn't like that idea because they felt like whatever immunosuppressant I'm on, I need to be suppressing the sarcoidosis in all my organs, and they didn't feel like Plaquenil was adequate for that. So I transferred to a dermatologist in Denver who specializes in people with autoimmune diseases that have skin manifestations. And she's been amazing, but she started me out by, you'll love this, doing multiple injections of steroids inside my mouth and in up and all under my nose.
what? That must
Yes.
hurt like
It was
crazy.
it was horrible. And she was like, "Well, do you want me to numb it?" And I'm like, "No, because the pain of the numbing medication, just get it over with." But yeah, so
Oh,
um, yeah. Anyway, I've stopped doing that because it was so painful and it was so short-lived. Like it might last, 30 days, if that. And, she said, "You're welcome to come back every 30 days and get it done again." And I'm like, this isn't fixing anything. All it's doing is just putting more steroids into my body and, temporarily giving me some relief. So I've stopped doing that. And so in November of 24, when we gave up on the Humira and I had given up on these steroid injections, injections, I was prescribed a JAK inhibitor, which Rinvoq and Xeljanz are the two JAK inhibitors, which is another type of immunosuppressant that works on a different I don't know the science behind it, but it's different. It acts differently than the TNF inhibitors. And if you look at the chart on medical sarcoidosis sites, they have for the doctors, if if you've got this sort of sarcoidosis, you try this, and you go all the way down the list. And, if this fails, then you go to this. And if this fails, you go to this. The very bottom of the list are the JAK inhibitors.
And that's what you're down to.
And that's what I'm down to. There are some chemotherapy options potentially, but none of us really want to go that direction. So, so but the problem is Medicare doesn't cover this drug for sarcoidosis. And I didn't have any other diagnoses that Medicare would cover the cost of this drug. And
Now, is this Xeljanz or
Xeljanz.
Rinvoq? Xeljanz. Okay.
Xeljanz. Yeah, that was the one we decided to take up because there was this Yale study that was done on Rinvoq that it was a small study, I think only 14 participants, but they had really good results on skin sarcoidosis, but they also had really good results on other organs such as lungs, lymph nodes, and the heart. And so the study looks very promising. And so we thought that we could get Medicare to approve it based on this study at Yale. But I quickly learned that that's not how Medicare works.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but took it all the way up to, I stopped when it got to the federal court level.
Wow.
I fought it.
In the courts.
In the courts.
All the way to federal court.
To federal court.
Wow.
I stayed in the Medicare court system, but I took it all the way to the top within that system. And then the next step was federal court. And I knew I couldn't represent myself. I couldn't prepare the briefs, darn it.
You're not an attorney.
I wish I'd gone to law school.
No kidding.
I almost
Right?
did.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just knew I didn't have the mental bandwidth, being sick to do that. So, and plus the cost of hiring a lawyer, FSR connected me with this amazing lawyer in Washington, and they were very helpful. And they basically told me it was hopeless. But I would have had to hire a high-powered attorney like that who's used to fighting Medicare. And the precedence wasn't there. So I was like, I'm not spending the money on these expensive lawyers to get nowhere when I can spend that money buying the drugs. So what I ended up doing is FSR connected me with the Patient Advocate Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the phone with them and my primary care doctor. And we went through this whole interview process with Pfizer. And I did get a free month supply with Pfizer of the Xeljanz. And that was good because it was a good test to see how I felt and how I did before I started spending the big bucks to buy the Xeljanz.
Out of pocket.
Out of pocket because Medicare wasn't going to cover it. And it wouldn't even count towards my deductible.
Is Xeljanz in the same price category as Humira?
It's a little bit more expensive.
So Humira is like $10,000 to $20,000 a dose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think,
Wow.
I think what I was looking at, and I can't remember the numbers. I'm terrible at remembering numbers. But yeah, it was like $60 a pill. And
Wow. Okay.
you're taking 2 pills a day. So, that's times 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I decided to buy my drugs in Canada.
Is that something just anybody can do?
Yep.
Really? Okay.
I'm not sure it's legal, John. I probably shouldn't be talking about it on the podcast.
We won't tell anybody except the people who are listening. How's that?
Exactly. So don't anyone get me in trouble here.
Okay. All right.
But, lots of people in America do it because, if their insurance doesn't cover a drug or their out of pocket is so expensive, their copay, it's very common. And so that's what I've been doing. And that was working pretty well until the tariffs went into effect. And, my drugs were held up. I could see my shipping thing that in New York, it was sitting at the U.S. Postal Center in New York. And I filed complaints with the U.S. Postal Service trying to get these drugs out because even
Yeah.
though it's a fraction of the cost, they're still really expensive. Anyway, but all of that seems to have settled down, and I think they figured out how to get things into the U.S. and not pay exorbitant tariffs, and so that's all good. But yeah, it's just and then ironically, after I started getting the Xeljanz, I did really well on it for about 6 weeks, and then I got pneumonia. And I was so sick. And I basically had been sick, was sick on off and on from the beginning of June all the way into early December.
Was
And
that just a result of the weakened immune system and everything? Probably.
well, that's what we thought. But what I discovered is I went back up to National Jewish and I saw I had another bronchoscopy done and I
Yeah.
was referred to an infectious disease doctor. And he found on my CAT scan that I have bronchiectasis. And
Never heard of that.
okay, so it's another lung disease. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Um, and bronchiectasis causes your bronchi to dilate, to stiffen and like stay open. And so normally your bronchi, sort of when something invasive comes in,
Yeah.
there are the cilia on the inside of the
Yeah.
bronchi.
The little hairs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they kind of stop things from getting in your lungs and, you know, infecting you.
Sure.
Well, probably what happened was I was exposed to the pneumonia in the community. It's called community acquired pneumonia.
Okay.
So, and I don't know how, because I mask everywhere. I'm so paranoid because I've been so sick, off and on through the years since I had sarcoidosis. And so, he's like, that pneumonia is probably as a result of the bronchiectasis. And so what the bronchiectasis does is because your lungs aren't clearing things, these little pockets of bacteria like find places to hide in your lungs.
Okay.
And so the bacteria just grows and grows and grows. And
Ugh.
yeah, it's horrible. And so I've been doing lung clearance devices. I use lung clearance device twice a day, which it's a process that was designed for people who have cystic fibrosis, who
Mm-hmm.
can't cough up.
Yeah.
And so I do treatments like people with cystic fibrosis. I
That
call it
makes you cough up all the ugly stuff?
to try and keep my lungs clear so that the bacteria doesn't have the opportunity to linger and grow infection.
I mean, you just take a pill and it has like triggers a gag reflex. Sorry, I don't
No,
want to get too personal, but
it's a machine.
oh, it's a
It's
machine.
it's a
Yeah.
machine. I call it Thumper.
Ah,
And yeah, so it's like I do a nebulizer treatment beforehand with albuterol and budesonide. So the albuterol opens up your airways, and the budesonide is a steroid to try and treat my lung sarcoidosis. And so I was doing the budesonide with the nebulizer anyway before all this happened. But then after that, I do Thumper, and that has a saline solution in it, and you breathe it in, and then the machine vibrates, and you've got this hose in your mouth. I should have brought it in here so you could see
huh?
it. and 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 so you do this breathing treatment, and it causes your lungs to, it just agitates your chest.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, you have to do this huff cough, which kind of reminded me of my brother and his friends, like, you're a guy. It's like,
Trying to see how far you can spit.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Like that. I
exactly.
know that one.
I'm not going to
Oh,
say what they used to call it,
uh-huh. Okay. All right. That's fair. But
but
yeah,
yeah.
I could spit a pretty good distance when I was a teenager. I'll tell you what. I don't know if I ever was ever the best, but I was good.
Well, so if you ever get bronchiectasis, you're well prepared for doing this special technique to
Uh-huh.
get your lungs clear.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, so I do all that twice a day. And what happened was I would be on antibiotics for like 2 weeks, and then I'd go off the antibiotics and I'd get this horrible cough back. I would get this lung infection back, and everything I was coughing up was disgusting. And I'm also, since August, sending sputum samples monthly to National Jewish to their Mycobacterium lab. They have one of the biggest labs in the country.
Yeah.
And through that, we discovered September, I got my first positive diagnosis of NTM, which is non-tuberculosis mycobacterium. And then they have to culture that for that first culture takes 30 days. And then they have to continue to culture it to see what kind of NTM it is. And mine came back as MAC, which is Mycobacterium avian complex.
Avian, as in bird flu,
Yeah,
avian?
but I don't think it has anything to do with
Nothing to do
birds.
with birds. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a bacteria that's in our environment every day. You know, you have healthy lungs, John. You're probably breathing it in and you just go on about your day. Well, I'm breathing it in, and because of the bronchiectasis, I'm it like stayed inside my lungs. And so like my husband lives in the same environment I'm in, and is exposed to the same things, and he doesn't have it. So it's just my weakened immune system, the way my lungs aren't working properly from scarring from the sarcoidosis. So this is tied to sarcoidosis. Um, anyway, so I've set before they will treat, you have to have two positives of MAC before they'll begin to treat it. And I've now had 3 positive cultures, but we're not treating it yet because in addition to that, I've got this secondary bacterial infection that I was referencing earlier that I just couldn't, every time I go off antibiotics, I get sick again. And so it's a different type of antibiotic that they use to treat this, whatever this
Bug
lung,
is. Yeah.
lung infection is that won't go away, than the MAC. And the MAC, I'm dreading starting it because it's really toxic. It's a toxic cocktail of antibiotics, and you're on those antibiotics until you have at least 1, maybe 2 negative sputum cultures. So usually people are on it for a year. And so, that's, I'm going back up to Denver in March, and I'll meet with the infectious disease doctor, but he's got me on this regimen right now of 2 antibiotics that I switch on and off every other week or 2 weeks at a time. And he's hoping that by not going off for 90 days, that this will, like, when I do go off, not allow me to still have that infection lingering in there.
Yeah. Do you have like a Venn diagram or a flow chart or something that you keep so you can track all of this all in your head, huh?
Yeah, but like for this, I wrote things down,
Yeah.
and I
Because
had
it's
to.
like if you move one thing, something else moves,
Yeah,
and everything is related, and you can't do this too much or it causes that. You can't do that too much or it causes the other thing.
yeah,
And you're just constantly chasing this sort of looking for balance and trying to find something where you can just live your daily life, right?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I'm just so grateful that, my husband's so supportive, and I have a great medical team at National Jewish. I just can't say enough about all the different specialists I see up in Denver. And, if they don't have the right doctor at National Jewish, they'll, help you find someone close by so I can just do everything in Denver. But, and I have a fabulous primary care doctor who works in tandem with my doctors at National Jewish. I mean, they text back and forth all the time. I don't even know half the time what they're doing, but
That's so rare. I mean,
yeah,
I wish we saw more of that.
I know. I wish everybody had the setup that I have. It's really, really fabulous. And, I just think I'd be severely depressed if I didn't have all of this help. But, it seems just not right that, MAC is a rare disease, sarcoidosis is a rare disease, and I've got them both. It's like,
Hmm.
what the heck?
What the heck? Well, and so despite all of this, you have skied. You live in near the Taos ski resort. That's your place of choice, right? And you've skied this winter?
Yeah, I've been out. We haven't had great snow, and so I'm kind of picky about the snow and the weather. But yeah, I've skied, I think, 5 or 6 days already this year. And I don't stay out long, but I also ski with my oxygen. I use oxygen um, at night to sleep and also at rest, for exercise.
Uh-huh.
And so I have a little portable oxygen concentrator in a backpack. And yeah, I'm out there trying to keep my speed down because I don't want to break any more bones.
Yeah, no kidding, because you broke your shoulder and your leg back during and around the pandemic, or yeah. Well, and the other thing I can't help but think of is you got this oxygen thing on your back. If you fall down, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, when it adds, excuse me, 8 pounds to
Mm.
of weight. And so I had to kind of learn my ski balance all over again because
Hmm.
putting 8 pounds on your back it throws you off. I'd never skied, some people ski with backpacks all the time, but I never have. And
Yeah.
it just throws your balance off. But
Right. And you're not on the bunny slopes. Like you're a real skier, so you're going for it, right?
yep, my top speed this year is 37.7 miles per hour.
What?
But I'm trying to slow down. I'm trying to slow down.
37 miles an hour. I mean, I'm a skier and I'm a cyclist, and I know that when I get to 37 miles an hour on my bicycle, I've never measured my speed skiing. I mean, I feel like I am flying. That wind is in my face and I'm flying.
It's
And
exhilarating.
oh, it's wonderful. And I could see why you work so hard for the chance to do that. And congratulations. Are you, I just have to ask, are you like tucking? Like are you down into like a low tuck to get going that fast? Or are you
Oh,
turning?
no,
Turning.
I'm turning. You know, Taos is a steep mountain, and so you can pick up your speed easily. And we are very fortunate that we do not have the crowds of a lot of the more popular resorts.
Yeah,
And I choose to ski on days when there aren't a lot of beginners or tourists on the mountain.
right.
And, like if I see wide open slopes in front of me and there's no one between me and, that I can see in my view, that's when I like to open it up. And so,
Well, I'm favorably impressed.
well, don't be.
I
I'm
will
probably
say
really
here,
stupid.
here in Virginia, I must say I'm favorably impressed with your activity there. That's my old Virginia gentleman.
That's
Uh,
pretty good. I have
okay.
a friend who's from Virginia and she does that too.
Does she? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I must say that's a high rate of speed you have achieved on the side of that mountain there in Taos. Um, but you also walk every day, right?
I try to.
Not
Yeah.
37 miles an hour, but you're
Oh
doing
gosh.
about 2 miles a day?
Yeah, but they're slow and, but yeah, I just, when I was first diagnosed with sarcoidosis, I found NYU had this webinar that they were doing on what you had to do to keep your body strong when you had sarcoidosis.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who did it, he was from a doctor at NYU. He said, you've got to stay active because when you have so many things wrong and you don't feel good, your inclination is to want to sit on your sofa and not move. But that's the absolute worst thing you can do. And so each time when I do get really sick and I'm on oxygen 24/7, I just, as soon as I'm able to, I start getting out and walking, even if it's just up and down my driveway, just to get out and keep moving because I'm turning 70 this year. And, I worry the older I get, the harder and harder it will be um, if I lose that strength to be able to just walk and do things. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you walk outside, not on a treadmill.
I walk outside. I live in a beautiful place surrounded by mountains and cloudless blue skies, the darkest blue you've ever seen. And, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you listen to the birds and that kind of stuff while you're walking or?
I usually listen to a book on Audible
Oh, okay.
or I walk with friends
Yeah.
or I walk with my husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
But
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I like to, I listen to Audible all the time in my car. And when I'm on my bike, I don't wear headphones when I'm cycling because of I need to keep my head on a swivel, so to speak, with
Mhm.
all the stuff going on around me, the vehicles and even on the greenway, you never know when there might be somebody coming or yeah. Anyway,
So can I just add a couple of other things?
yeah, I was going to ask you about FSR, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to do that, but I also want to just add a couple other softballs that were thrown at me this year.
Yeah, yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so in July, I went, for my annual um, breast MRI, and they found something. And this was when I was in the middle of all these lung infections, had just been diagnosed with bronchiectasis, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, you
Right.
know. And they're like, you've got to go get a breast biopsy. I'm like, no, I don't have time to do that. I got to get this other stuff under control. So I kept putting it off. And finally in September, I got the breast biopsy and it was negative. And that was such a huge relief. And, because I think, you just, every little thing when you have sarcoidosis, you just worry, like I'm sure with your Achilles, you worry like how is that going to affect the impact on my body that sarcoidosis has already had? At least that's where my brain goes. I just worry about all of that. And then my I saw it, I had to see an immunologist because my lymph lymphocytes, my CD4 and my CD8s were really low, and my lymphocytes were really low. And yeah, they just were having a hard time figuring out why. Because with the immunosuppressants I'm on, I guess most patients don't, most sarcoidosis, they see a lot of sarcoidosis patients at National Jewish, and they just said they weren't seeing people with such low counts as what I've been having. And so then the immunologist referred me to a hematologist oncologist who did all sorts of other tests. And that was just in December. And I just last week got the results that all of that came back. It was just my normal abnormals. But no evidence of leukemia or a blood disorder. But like for, I don't know, through the holidays, I've been, sort of had this anxiety hanging in the back of my brain about, adding one more thing. And I'm just so relieved that what is not in the realm of my all the other things wrong with my body. But it just tells you though how you need to stay on top of your doctors and you know make sure that when something isn't right, to ask the questions and make sure that they're sending you to whoever you need to be seeing to rule out whatever should be ruled out and move
Yeah.
on.
Oh, thank God you don't have leukemia. I
Oh
mean,
my God.
yeah, man. I mean, at least, I mean, in terms of everything you got going on, that's fantastic news. And I'm sorry you had to deal with that in the back of your mind all through the holidays. That must have been, you know, uh, thinking that you might have leukemia and not knowing for any period of time, that's terrible. That's
Yeah.
just terrible.
Well, none of my doctors really thought it was a positive, but they
Yeah.
wanted to rule it out.
Yeah.
They felt like that step was necessary before they decide what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I get that.
Have any of your doctors ever looked at everything you've got going on and said, if we look at this patient as a whole, we can drill right down past all of these things and find a common denominator? Is there anybody that can or would attempt that, or is that just me thinking maybe that's just the way I wished it was?
I think it might be the latter, John, but I
Yeah.
would say that my primary care doctor was my pulmonologist when I was diagnosed, and she was a chief resident at Hopkins, and so she's has a very curious mind.
Yeah.
And if anybody would do it, she would be the one that would do it. Um, because I think everyone else just kind of tries to stay in their lanes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, they do that. I mean, and if you're a doctor, you'd only have so much time to think. You have so many patients.
right.
You've got the insurance companies and the threat of legal lawsuits coming if you get out over your skis too far, to use an analogy. So they're much safer staying in their lanes,
Mhm.
aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean,
But
yeah.
it's important that while they stay in their lanes, they talk to each other. And that's
Yes.
why going to one of the global sarcoidosis clinics, if you can, for people who are listening, is so important, or at least, to make sure that the clinic you are going to, that the specialists all talk to each other if you have
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, if you have systemic sarcoidosis. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
think it's critical.
Yeah. Well, you've continued to volunteer. I mentioned at the top of the podcast that your husband John, who's actually also been on the show, he is on the board with me, and he supports you, and you are part of the patient advisory committee for FSR, and also you're helping out at National Jewish with some of their stuff. Tell me about what you're doing there.
Well, a couple of years ago, I don't remember when it was, you may remember, FSR created the Global Sarcoidosis Clinic Alliance.
Yeah, I'd say it's been about 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And as part of that process, um, each clinic, FSRs recruited patients to serve as volunteers to run patient support groups for the clinics. And I actually volunteered to do National Jewish. And so I am a co-leader with another patient who she lives in Utah. I live in New Mexico. The hospital's in Denver. But the hospital really serves the Mountain West, and people come
Yeah.
from all over the world, really. And we do our meetings on Zoom because everybody is so dispersed, and people
Hmm.
who live in Denver don't want to brave the traffic to drive, somewhere. So yeah, so we do our meetings on Zoom. We pretty much, I think we probably average 8 meetings a year. We bring in doctors, we bring in nurses, nurse practitioners, um, on all different topics. We've brought in people from outside of National Jewish to talk. It's not just experts within the hospital. And now FSR also has a program with uh, one of the drug companies, and they provide nurses who will come and speak as volunteers on various topics. So we've had two of them in the last 6 months, and they've been excellent.
Really?
Just last week, we did one on oxygen therapy, which I think everybody found very helpful.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and it's a great way to build community, to meet other patients who have sarcoidosis. Um, and usually, after we have speakers, we'll keep, the line open, the Zoom open, and anyone who wants to hang on and vent or share what they're going through, or we're at a point now where there's you know people who are on the call every month, and we want to know what's going on with them. Just I wouldn't say that there's friends, but we have relationships, and we just want to check in on these people that we've been seeing on the screens for a year or less or
Right.
whatever.
Right. If someone lives in the Mountain West, they want to join your group, is there a link or an easy way for them to find you?
Yeah, the best way is let me have Kristen Vargas at FSR give
Sure.
you the link for National Jewish.
Okay.
And once you register once, you're registered and you'll get all the Zoom information for all the meetings.
Okay.
And yeah, we'd love that. And they don't even have to be a patient at National Jewish. If
Great.
they're being seen at, a small clinic somewhere and
Yeah.
just want to have community and talk to other sarcoidosis patients. Yeah, and I have tried to make myself available. I've done some op-eds for FSR,
Mhm.
mostly on oxygen, because there's a bill before Congress called the SOAR Act to make oxygen therapy, to make Medicare and Medicaid pay for portable oxygen for people so they can be out and about in their communities and make it more available. So I've, co-authored some pieces on that with them. I've just done a thing for rare diseases for hopefully one of my senators is sponsoring a bill. And so if that moves forward when, in the next session, then I think when that announcement goes out, I will, have a quote in there. And, so there are plenty of ways to get involved with FSR. And, everybody's going to have their strengths and places that you can get involved. And I just really encourage all the patients listening to, get signed up for emails so that when there's a webinar, an educational opportunity, take advantage of those as much as you can to learn more and more about your disease, because the more you know, the better able you are to work with your medical team to get the best care possible. And I think we all need the best care possible.
Hmm.
But we all have a role to play there.
Right. Right. Well, Janet, thanks. Despite everything you're going through, thank you for the time that you spend trying to help other people. And God help you with all of these different complications and the skin sarcoidosis and the injections. And now you're down to the bottom of the menu, as it were. So let's hope that whatever you're doing continues to work. Do you have any last thoughts before we part ways on this episode?
Yeah, I guess I would just say, you know, as I said earlier, I have gratitude to everybody who helps me, my friends, my husband, my family, and my doctors. And, I just have the attitude of living my life to the fullest every day. And someday it's more full than others, and that's okay. And I try not to let my lizard brain rule. I try to let my intellectual brain rule. But like when I skis at 37 miles per hour, that's my lizard brain, and I need to like put that lizard brain to sleep. And but it's everyone's just got to figure out their balance, and yeah, it is what it is, and you just got to make the most of it every day because who knows what tomorrow brings. And in my case, this last 6 months, there have been a lot of hammers coming down, and you just got to go forward.
Right. Well,
And
enjoy.
thank you, John.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's absolutely my pleasure. And send me another picture of you out on the slopes, but don't take it while you're going 37 miles an hour. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a GoPro on.
Okay. Okay, good. Janet, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Can you believe that Janet is talking to us while she's receiving an IV treatment, and she's still getting out and walking 2 miles every day? She's skied a few times with that oxygen pack on her back, and not just skiing, but getting up to 37 miles an hour. That's not easy. I'm just going to say that is very, very inspiring. She must be a hell of a skier. There is a link in the show notes to donate to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. You hear my public service announcement about KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis, and encouraging you to be a part of what I call the sarcoidosis solution. So look in the show notes, and that donation goes straight to FSR in the name of this podcast. So I'd appreciate it if you would make a donation now or at some point in the future when your finances allow. This is a good time to contact me if you want to share your story on the podcast. carlinagency@gmail.com. The official Sark Fighter song is Zombie by Mark Steyer and his band, the White Hot Lizards. Mark gave us an update on his condition in episode 118. The podcast comes out every other Monday. As I'm speaking today, my trusty dogs, Dougal and Shandy, are hanging out with my wife in her office since we're all kind of snowed in. If you are new here and you just want to know what sarcoidosis is, listen to episode 2 with Dr. Simon Hart. My story is episode 1. Again, please send me an email. It's in the show notes, carlinagency@gmail.com. And until next time, keep fighting.
Learn to suffer, you feel pain someday. Learn endurance, your strength will fade away. Dead man walking, trying to keep up the pace. Dead